All right, well, this finally happened. Richie Kotzen, been trying to get this one for a while. When I asked my audience at the end of the year who they wanted to see on my show in 2022, Richie was the number one guest. So I'm very glad that it finally happened. I'm a big fan of all his work, his solo stuff, Poison, Mr. Big, Winery Dogs, and of course his latest project, Smith Kotzen with Adrian Smith of Iron Maiden. And they have a new album coming out. And also Richie has some solo tour dates we're going to talk about. Plus we're going to talk about how he almost became the guitarist for Ozzy Osbourne, working with Roger Daltrey from The Who, and so much more. This is a great interview. Stay right there. Welcome to my show here. We got a lot to talk about. So the first thing is the Smith Kotzen. You guys are doing another album. I guess it's half studio and half live tracks, right?
It is. So we did a bunch of shows earlier in the year, and when we got to England, we recorded two of the shows, and we were able to pull some cool tracks together, and now we've got this live thing coming out. It's 5 tracks that are live, and then 5 studio recordings that were not on the original album, but they were released earlier on an EP that I believe was only available in vinyl. I think that's what it was. Yeah,
that's the Better Days EP, because I think that one's on Spotify now.
Yeah, so the songs, I think there's 5 songs from that, and they are up there.
So those are the same ones that were recorded with the first album?
Correct.
Okay. So that was that one because I heard you say that it was recorded at the Turks and Caicos. Tell me about the recording process, because that sounds, I looked at that place up online. It looks amazing.
Yeah, it's really something. It's really great down there, and we were able to bring in some of our gear and set it up. We rented a wonderful house that had a great situation on the water. And, we'd get up and kind of do our thing, and then, I think Adrian did a lot of fishing. He'd go off and do a bit of fishing. And back then I was doing that's for my solo album, 50 for 50. So we would do that sort of thing in the morning, and then later in the afternoon get together and do our work, and then go out, for dinner afterwards. And it was a great process. And then anything that we weren't able to get done there, I got a studio in Los Angeles that we were able to utilize that and get things done.
Does that make a difference where you record? I don't know if you wrote the songs there too, but does that bring a different creative vibe to that? Like when it's this beautiful paradise, I mean, it's harder to write darker songs or be in a bad mood.
I mean, I think it's harder to do anything other than just lay on the beach. It's kind of funny. I will say this, because I've always had some sort of facility and ability to record without having to rent someone's studio. And for a period of time, for most of my life, it was, the studio would be where I lived. But for a period of time, I owned a small commercial building in North Hollywood, and I turned that into a recording studio. It was really more of the idea of a real estate venture, to be honest, but it worked out quite well, because by selling studio time, I paid the holding costs of the building, and it appreciated, and I got out. But the point I'm trying to make is that when I had that studio for the 3 or 4 years that I had it, it was probably my least productive period creatively, because what would happen is, in the old days, meaning before I had the studio, I'd have an idea, I'd stumble into my home studio at 3 a.m, and I'd work, and by the time the sun came up, I'd have, something going. And when I had it off site, I would have to get in the car, drive down there, open the gate, turn off the alarm, fire up the system. And by the time I went through everything, I had forgotten what it was that I went there to do. So, a long-winded answer to your question, ultimately, there's no place like home. So I think I do my best work when I can just kind of get up at any hour and just get to it.
So you have a studio in your house now?
Yeah, I do. I have it. You know, it's not what you would think. I mean, it doesn't look really like a studio, but there's 2 rooms that are wired together. And obviously one room is a tracking room where I rehearse. You know, Adrian and I rehearsed the band there before we did the California dates. And then we went into a larger facility. But initially we rehearsed here to work out all the details. And then, you know, the Winery Dogs, we just finished our 3rd record. It's being mastered, and we recorded that here at my studio. But, yeah, you know, I've got all the gear that I've had, you know, the Neve stuff and the API stuff. I still have all that good stuff. So
that's cool.
I can do a lot of damage. Yeah.
I didn't even know about the 3rd Winery Dogs. I was going to ask you if there was something in the works. So it's already recorded and ready to go then.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't want to take focus off of what's around the corner here, which is obviously the Smith Kotzen live bit, which, you know, I'm super excited about that. But yeah, the Winery Dogs, the 3rd album, the music exists. It's been mixed. It's been approved, and it has been mastered. So what we're looking at now is, when are we going to put it out? But the consensus seems to be that next year, 2023, will be the Winery Dog year. And I think the 3 of us really are excited about, you know, getting back at it, because it's been way too long, you know.
Yeah, no, for sure. I love those first 2 records that you guys made, and I never got a chance to see you live. So you will tour in conjunction for that record.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's going to be a bunch of touring. I know they're putting dates together, so we're all very excited about that.
Okay, so right now you got the Better Days and Nights, Smith Kotzen. That's out on CD and digital September 16th. And then if people want the vinyl, it comes out in Wait, is it coming out in November?
You're asking the wrong guy about the release dates. I don't really know. I sound like a fool, but I'm not sure. I know I saw something come up that our song charted in a nice position there, and so I know the song is up, the first single, but I don't know. Sometime in September.
Okay. Yeah, September 16th.
Before I start talking to people, I better get the details.
Yeah, I think September 16th. I was just reading. It looks like the EP was already released. That was on November, because that's the one. Like I said, it's on Spotify now. But sometimes the vinyl takes longer, so I didn't know if it was a different date. But it looks like you can the CD and digital. Yeah, coming out September 16th. So that, and then you've got some shows Smith Kotzen, and then some shows that are just solo Richie.
Well, there's no Smith Kotzen shows out there right now. We've done those. That
okay.
Was that was in the beginning of the year. Right now, I believe I've got about 39 shows up. We just did 5 shows last week. We did our LA show, which was at the Canyon Club in Agoura Hills. We did we went down to San Juan Capistrano. There were 5 shows that we did. And then we had a couple days off, and now tomorrow we're picking it up again at Morro Bay, and I'm going to stay out until September 25th, I believe, is the last show in New Orleans. But we're really going, you know, going all over the place. We're going up to New Hampshire. We've got 3 nights in New York, and you know, Omaha, Nebraska. Omaha, Nebraska's in there. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. Some Midwest plays.
Yeah, it's all over. I've got the
Illinois.
dates in front of me. It's funny though, because like, yeah, you're going to Nevada and California and Colorado, but not. I'm in Arizona, and so you're skipping Arizona. So, but if you wanted to add that date, it looks like there's between Vegas and Colorado, there's a day off. So if you wanted to add that, I'd love to come see you.
Yeah, I know. You know, it's so. I don't want to say it's frustrating, because it's not that it's frustrating, because anytime you can get routing and get a tour that makes sense, and you know that doesn't, you know, that isn't at risk, it's a great thing. But you know, it's just strange how you look at it when it's like, oh well, we could have went here, there. But the reality is, is you get the offers that are available at the time that they're available. So it's just such a tricky. I wouldn't want to be a booking agent because you got to take all these things into account. You know, the bus, and now there's new things in play where certain drives have to be broken up, you know, with time in between. So it's just getting trickier and trickier, but, you know, it is what it is at this point. I'm just happy to be getting back out.
Yeah, and do the shows. And then you have the, tell my audience about the VIP thing, because I was just looking that up and I was like, that sounds really cool. You let them come to sound check, which is kind of rare these days for musicians to allow fans into the sound check.
Yeah, you know, I don't have much to hide when it comes to that sort of thing. And I thought, you know, I know a lot of people do the packages, and I thought, well, you know, I should do them too. And I think the real value there is kind of like a peek behind the curtain. They can come in, they watch the sound check. So it's not like we sound check and then come out and do a performance. They're literally seeing, you know, me getting frustrated with the fact that I can't hear my voice, or, you know, a ring and a floor tom. I was seeing the whole sound check. And so then, you know, we go through that and we play, you know, a bit to make sure everything is working the way it should. And then I come off the stage, I'll come down and say hello and have a chat, take a photograph. There's some things that they get as part of the package, you know, poster, and photograph, and a pass. And then, you know, what's happening is a lot of people are bringing things for me to sign. I know a lot of folks have bought my signature model Fender guitar, as well as the pedal that I have out there with Tech 21 and Fly Rig. So I see a lot of those. I autograph those, and sometimes folks have questions about the Fly Rig, like how do you set it for this or that, and why do you use two of them, you know, all this sort of stuff. So it's a cool opportunity to just, you know, have a chat and have a look behind the curtain.
And you don't have any limits on, you won't sign this or that, or you only sign 2 items, or no rules like that?
Well, yeah, I mean, they management, you know, the front office basically says, hey, you know, we got to keep this thing running smooth. So, you know, no more than 2 personal items to sign. But, you know, it depends really. Like if there's only a handful of folks there, I'll sign whatever you have. That's fine. If it's a large group of people, then it's not really fair to make everybody stand around and sign 15 things for one person. So it's kind of a play it by ear kind of thing. But I think everybody seems to be happy with the way it goes.
That's so great. I love that musicians can do that, because I know you guys don't get as many album sales, obviously, but the meet and greet is such a great moneymaker, and it's not that much extra work for you. I think it's a great thing, and I think the fans love it. I know that. Yeah,
it's it's just such a different time. I mean, I can't imagine like when I was a kid, if there was some kind of, you know, way that I could meet Eddie after the show, after a Van Halen show. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it's just it's a different time. You know, the musicians back then had this kind of, you know, mysterious, larger than life persona, because you didn't have all this social media. And I who's to say what's better or worse? But I think, you know, I like meeting people. You know, and the whole thing all what we're doing here revolves around people. So I think it all adds up. It all makes sense.
No, that's really cool. Now you have some shows with John Corabi, I think. I just had him on the show. He's great. Would you guys do any songs together, like just jam or something, or like 1 or 2 songs?
That wasn't discussed. You know, I know that our show is pretty much runs the way it runs, and I don't really, I'm embarrassed to say that despite the fact that I played in a full-time cover band from the age of 15 until I graduated high school, I don't know a lot of covers. And so I wouldn't know, you know, I wouldn't even know what to do. But that's not to say one night we don't do something, you know, you never know. But it's kind of funny. It reminds me of, you know, years back, you know, I was working with the Winery Dogs, and they wanted to do a covers album. And it was just like, I couldn't get my head around it.
Oh, I'm losing you.
What?
You're breaking up. Oh,
what?
You're back. Okay.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Sorry.
So sorry. You were saying you were trying to do a song with the Winery Dogs and you didn't know it? Or
oh,
what?
no. Years ago, you know, the guys wanted to. There was chatter of doing a covers album, and I just couldn't get myself motivated to do it. It wasn't that I wanted to be difficult one way or another, but when it literally came time to like learn the cover song and then try to figure out how to play it, and then getting in my head of like, well, this song already exists and the performance is amazing. Why am I even doing it? I just could never get excited enough to do it. Now, I have done cover songs live, but they're usually songs that have influenced me in some way or another. Like for years, I would do a version of Sarah Smile from Hall & Oates, and Daryl Hall literally grew up 8 miles down the road from where my house was, and so that he was an influence. So I play a Daryl Hall song, but I don't know. We'll see what happens. As far as John and I jumping up and doing something together, I sure love the guy, so it definitely would be fun to share a moment with him. Or
you guys could write a song together and perform it. That would be fun. I'd be down for that too.
No, that would be something. That it's kind of an interesting connection between us. I mean, we're both Philadelphia area guys, so there's that. And around the same time, when I replaced CeCe DeVille for a brief moment in Poison, he jumped in Motley Crue and Vince left. So, there's definitely, some interesting connections between the two of us. So who knows? We might be onto something.
It's interesting though, because you both replace those guys in the quote unquote hair bands or whatever, but neither one of you really has that sound on your own. Like your solo stuff doesn't sound like that kind of stuff, but I love it all. I love Poison. I love Motley Crue. I love Corabi solo. I love your solo stuff.
Yeah. Well, I think it comes from a different era. I mean, you have to understand, I grew up listening to a lot of R&B music. My first concert was Stevie Wonder in the Round at the Valley Forge venue outside of Philly. And then literally a month later, I saw George Benson, who completely changed everything for me, singing and playing the guitar. And so, and then with the rock thing, I kind of leaned a little heavier. Like, I grew up listening to Black Sabbath and Iron Maiden. So, that's just my influences are a bit different, but it's not to say that I didn't enjoy my time in the band. I sure enjoyed making that record.
The Poison one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that album. That's how I kind of really became a fan of yours. I mean, I think I had heard like your song on Bill and Ted's, but then I really became a fan of you through Poison. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I love that album. I think it's underrated. And you still perform Stand live sometimes, right?
Yeah, from time to time it finds its way into the set, and I love that song. I love playing it. There's a couple other ones on that record. Until You Suffer Some. I've done that acoustically already in the past.
Yeah. No, that's good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting when you go through all this stuff in your career. For me, like back in the cover band days, back in the tri-state area, which for me would have been Philadelphia, New Jersey, and Delaware, playing all those rooms, and then all of a sudden the whole Shrapnel thing, and then getting signed to a major label from that, and then the Poison era, and just all these and then Mr. Big. There's all these little chapters, it's just strange when you look back at it. It's like it's literally chapters. It's so different. It's not like I didn't do the same thing over and over and over and over again my whole life. It's like it's kind of colorful if I look back at it,
Yeah. So this was another thing I didn't know about. So I don't know. My audience probably doesn't know about this either. But after Poison, before Mr. Big, there was a brief time where you were considered for Ozzy's band after Zakk Wylde left. Yeah,
that is true, and that's interesting that you know that. I must have mentioned that somewhere in the past. But in 1995, I just put out my record on Geffen, and my manager had it all set up. The deal was negotiated. Everything was in play. And I went to New York, and I remember I watched a movie in Ozzy's hotel room with him, and he was telling me stories. And the next morning I had a meeting at breakfast with Sharon, and she was, saying how great it was going to be. And So I was sending riffs to them for him to write to. And somehow, I mean, this is how I see it, and I'm sure it could be seen in different lights from different sides, but the way I saw it was, I had mentioned to somebody in the business to keep it quiet that, you know, I was in New York and we played together, and they told me I had the gig, and it was, this was after Steve Vai actually had left. He had done some work and left. And I told a friend in the business, and the friend in the business went into a chat room. Back then it was AOL. And he leaked that the ex-Poison guitarist, Richie Kotzen, was going to be the new guitar player in Ozzy Osbourne. And I swear to God, the minute that came up, a lot of people were kind of getting pissed off because they thought, they didn't know who I was. They saw the word Poison. And back then, Poison didn't command the kind of respect musically that Ozzy did. And so the way I saw it is that camp just totally turned on the situation, and I never heard from them again. Although I did see him years later in the Beverly Hills Hotel at brunch, and he was sitting there, and I went over and said hello, and he was very nice, and so was Sharon. But I'm convinced that I know that's what happened, because all through the 90s, one of the things that was interesting with Poison, as great as that record was, and as well as it did, all things considered, when I left the band, that being associated with any of those bands from that era of music was just, I mean, MTV just crushed all of them. They wouldn't play their, you know, now they're playing stadiums, so who has the last laugh? But back then, it was like the kiss of death, having had been associated with an 80s metal band through the 90s was a real problem. It was a real problem for me, trying to kind of shake the stigma for many years. And then once the internet opened up and I didn't have to depend on the record label, I could basically do whatever I wanted, and then the people could hear the music and decide for themselves. But there was a lot of turbulence in the mid 90s coming out of that. But you know, it adds character, and I wouldn't change anything. I think it really, you know, I probably would have never written a song like You Can't Save Me, for example, had I not gone through all those other things.
No, that's really cool. And now, do you have because I know we talked about the Smith Kotzen and the Winery Dogs, but then also you have a new solo album coming out as well.
No, I don't. I don't have a new solo album. That's the only thing I don't have. After having done 24 of them, I think people could take a break from that. But the last record I did was an album called 50 for 50.
Yeah, yeah.
I released. That's probably what you're talking about. I released that on February 3rd, 2020. And we literally had, like everybody else, we had tons of shows booked. I had 4 continents worth of dates, and it was going to be this big, big tour. And then, you know, it all came down. And somehow, when it all came down, I kind of realized that, well, I certainly did not want to see any kind of situation like what happened. But, you know, sometimes taking a break and kind of retooling the shed is a good thing.
Okay. So no new album in the works, or that's going to be on the back burner because the Winery Dogs is the next thing after Smith Kotzen.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I've got to say, I really got to do a little bit of living now, because I've done, you know, it was 50 for 50, then it was me and Adrian, and now I just did the Winery Dogs. It's like, okay, I don't want to keep writing the same, you know, 12 songs over and over again. So I think the move is, you know, enjoy this tour that we've got for my solo stuff, and hopefully, you know, people checking out this interview will come check out the show. Go to richiekotzen.com. You'll see all the dates. You can buy the VIP packages, whatever it is you're looking for. But we're going to do that. Then we've got the release of the new Smith Kotzen thing, and then somewhere at the end of the year, beginning of next, we're going to go full Winery Dogs, and you know, a lot of live touring with that as well.
Is recording new music for you, is it more just for your own creative outlet, or is it somewhat lucrative? Do you make some sort of money, or do you lose money on it? Because I know I saw some of the videos. They're very high quality professional videos. I mean, I see millions of streams on Spotify, but I know that doesn't really add up. Can you place the music? Because I also heard like Winery Dogs and like Monday Night Football before and stuff. Does that help?
Yeah. I mean, it's a situation, look, to answer your question, I've never done anything other than make a living on my music. And so I was fortunate that when I was very young, I started writing songs, and for me, it's always been about the song. That's literally how I, live the lifestyle that I live. It's not because of my guitar playing. The guitar playing is a part of it, but the real thing is having made so many albums and owning the masters. I don't have to do, a lot of business in order to see revenue. When I say a lot of business, I mean like mainstream, like a massive hit. So to answer your question, of course there's revenue there. And then you've got your touring. And, I've never been like, I went through phases where I've spent money in kind of a reckless way, probably mostly on clothing. But and you'd never guess it, because one of my friends years ago said, "Man, you're the only person that can walk into a room wearing $3,000 in wardrobe and still look homeless." I was like, "Okay, thank you. I'm going to take that as a compliment." But I don't know. I'm going through this phase too where I have so much stuff, and I'm thinking the less stuff I have, I think the more freer I feel in my mind. I just did inventory on my guitars, and I took photographs of them, and I counted 87 stringed instruments in the house. And I'm starting to think, I just I don't care to have all this stuff,
Do you typically play one guitar when you go live, or do you need like 5 or 10 or?
I've done many a tour, especially overseas, where I just take my Telecaster and that is it, one guitar. Now on this tour, I'm playing the Stratocaster quite a bit. I have a signature Strat with Fender. There's a red one and a white one. And they had just sent me this red guitar. And although the wood is the same spec as it always is, this one in particular is really light. And it's so comfortable. So I've been using it and breaking it in. And so you'll see me, if you look at any footage from this tour, you'll see me with a red Strat. I still play the white Strat, and of course I'm playing my Telecaster quite a bit. So there's 3 guitars that I'm traveling with this time, but I've done tours with just one guitar.
And what other gear? I'm not a gearhead, but I know there's some people that love that stuff. So is there other like pedals and things that you bring with you? Or?
Yeah, I have my own pedal that I designed in connection together with the Tech 21 called the Fly Rig. That has been for sale for almost 10 years now, I think. And it's a multi-effect pedal. It's small. It's got everything that I need in it. And I use 2 of them. I don't want to bore you with the details why I use 2, but it serves a purpose, a certain function. So those 2 are connected. And then I've got an old school Crybaby wah, Dunlop wah. And the one trick that's kind of interesting is the wah is modified to see phantom power out of the input jack of the Fly Rig. So if you use a stereo cable 1/4 inch, it will send on that middle rung, it'll send voltage into the modified wah. And so literally you just plug in one thing and the wah sees power through it. It's pretty clever. And that was the guys at Tech 21 did that for me. So maybe the move would be at some point to do a signature wah that's designed to live with that Fly Rig. It's something we've talked about. We just haven't done it yet.
Oh, that's cool. And you play bass too, right? Because I know I was listening to one of the Smith Kotzen songs and the bass line was so cool. And I was like, oh, who's the bass player? Then I realized it's you and Adrian playing all the bass too.
I love bass guitar. I mean, you got to think about, I've had the luxury of having bands with some of the greatest bass players. I mean, Jeff Berlin played on one of my albums when I was very young. Stu Hamm. I was in a band with T.M. Stevens. Stanley Clark and I had a band together. Billy Sheehan and I have been in 2 separate bands together. So
Glenn Hughes, isn't he?
Glenn. I mean, I love Larry Graham and Byron Miller. I mean, I just love bass guitar, and I really, it's something in my solo music that I don't really let anybody near it, because I just have the vision for what I want to hear the bass doing, and has nothing to do with being a guitar player. It's, when I pick up that bass, I'm a bass player. I'm thinking about, the guys like Larry Graham and Stanley Clark and that I grew up listening to, Nate Watts. I mean, love the bass guitar.
Didn't you do a song with Gene Simmons too?
I did. Gene did a solo album when I had my recording studio. He came in there. I don't know how it ended up happening. Someone connected us, and I'll never forget. He showed up with this tape, a cassette, and it was a format that I hadn't seen anyone use in a long time. And I said, I'm like, what am I going to do? I said to the engineer, I said, we got to do something. We don't have this machine. And so, my engineer handled it, went and rented the machine, this and that. But Gene did a solo album there, and he was a wonderful client and a great guy. And I had met him many years prior to that, because the guy that was managing me was consulting for KISS. So I had met Gene through him. But, he's a great guy, and also been very supportive of my endeavors publicly. When the Winery Dogs album came out, him and Paul both said some very nice things. So that's very cool.
That is really cool. You mentioned one of the chapters of your career, Mr. Big. That's another. I'm a fan of them. I had Eric on the show. I had Paul. I haven't had Billy yet, but talk about that era, because you did 2 albums with them, and 2 of those songs are like really big in Japan, and they're great songs. I know Shine, you co-wrote that one with Eric. Super fantastic. You didn't write that, but that's another great one.
No, I didn't. Eric did not write Shine. That was me. I wrote Shine, and I'll tell you how that happened. We were making that record, and our producer was Richie Zito, who was a friend of mine from way back when. I met him on the Poison album. He produced that too. And he, this is someone that's had multiple top 10 singles and worked with, countless, A-list pop stars. So he kept saying, he said, you guys don't have a first single. You don't have a first single. And so I played him Shine. And when I played him Shine, it was done. It was a demo, with the exception that I didn't have the lyrics for the verse. But I had the chorus recorded, and I had all the melodies. There was guitars. And we were trying to write the lyrics to the song. And he said, just think, you need an opening line. He said, how do you feel right now? And I just said this. I said, I never really feel quite right. And I don't know why. I just know that something's wrong. And he goes, fuck, write that down. That's the opening line of the song. That's it. I'm like, really? He's like, yeah, write that down. That's your opening line. So he literally lit a fire under my ass to finish it. And I credit him as a co-write to the tune of a small percentage, because if it wasn't for him lighting that fire, that song would still be on the hard drive. So that tune was mine. The one that Eric wrote that was a single was on the previous record called Super Fantastic, which was a really, really great song. I mean, Eric is such a great songwriter as well. So he and I had a lot of fun in that era, just kind of throwing ideas back and forth. We did a song that it was like a B-side called You Don't Have to Be Strong. And he and I wrote that together. And I haven't heard it in many years, but I remember that. I remember recording that and thinking, that's a pretty special tune. There's something cool about that. So I really enjoyed writing with him. And then the whole catch for me was, I wanted to play with Billy Sheehan. So, it was like a win-win. And Eric, also, nobody probably knows, Eric is one of the first people I met when I came to California to record my second album, actually. So he was one of the earlier friends that I made that was in a big band. And I remember we drove together to the Bammies, and we shared a limo with me and a couple people. And then the following year, this was pretty cool. Eric and I performed at the Bay Area Music Awards with Neil Sean. It was basically Journey. It was Neil, Jonathan, Ross Valerie, Narda Michael Walden on drums, and then Mike Varney was playing guitar as well from Shrapnel Records. So we did this really cool show. I think we did 2 or 3 songs, and that was, you know, all this stuff was happening. You know, it's like all these crazy, like, holy fuck, I'm playing with Neil Sean, you know, like all that kind of shit.
That is amazing. Eric, he did my show. He's so funny. I don't know. I heard you say that when you guys recorded Actual Size, you made it at his house and you guys just ended up getting drunk a lot. Like, I don't know if he was drunk when he did my interview, but I can't imagine drinking with him seems like a lot of fun.
Yeah. I mean, his personality is a little different than mine. I remember one night we were talking, we were hanging out at the Sunset Marquee, which is where I used to go when I wasn't on tour. I would be in there. And we were sitting outside, and I was talking to a young lady, and he's got a lot of energy, and he was kind of, you know, shuffling around with his hands, and he's trying to get my attention. And I could see him out of the corner of my eye, and he was getting frustrated because I know he wanted to say something to me, but in my mind, I'm like, listen, I can't break, you know, this conversation with this lady because, you know, you're going to fuck up my whole night here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm ignoring him, and in his, like, you know, shuffling around, he knocks a drink off the table, and the drink spills all over my leg.
Oh, shit.
But I don't even acknowledge it because I don't want to, you know, break this conversation. And the girl doesn't realize that it happened because I don't react to it. And so, you know, I mean, all of a sudden he starts flipping out. God damn it! I just threw a drink on you. You know, this and that. So, all in good fun. I mean, the guy is super talented, you know, and we had a lot of fun on those tours. You know, he's a great guy.
Yeah. So, and obviously that's how is that where you met Billy originally?
No, I met Billy unconnected to my relationship with Eric. I dated a girl that he used to date, and she took me over to his house, and that's when I remember meeting him, like, officially for the first time, and we just hung out, and, you know, was a nice guy, and then what happened there, here's something that nobody knows. This is something that you'll find interesting, is that there was a point where Mr. Big was inactive, and Billy and Pat Torpey wanted to do something together, and they called me in, and it was a power trio. It was like, really like, you know, what I'm doing now with Billy, you know, and Mike, but back then, you know, it was Pat. And so Pat Torpey, me and Billy were going down to Mates, and we were writing songs together. And nothing ever came of it. I don't know why. Maybe Mr. Big went back to it. I don't know what happened, but one of those songs ended up on one of my solo records. I have a record called What Is, and there's a song on there called Locked Out. And that was a song that came out of those writing sessions. We wrote the music together, and then I took it home and wrote the words and finished it up, and they came in and recorded it. But I don't think anybody knows that ever happened. And that was before I joined Mr. Big, so that was probably 1997, 1998, somewhere around there.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't know that. Maybe the Blabbermouth wants to pick that story up. I don't know. I think it's interesting.
Well, I'm sure they'll pick up a lot of stuff because you're asking me all kinds of questions that I've never been asked before. So I'm sure
really?
There's a lot of stuff in here.
Okay.
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah.
That's good.
You're digging deep.
I'm trying to. Yeah. I mean, they told me today, they're like, hey, can you interview him today? I was like, I usually want more time to dig deep, but I guess I did a good enough job.
Is this an audio? I mean, are people going to hear me speaking, or are you transcribing this?
No, it's just a podcast. So yeah, it's all, typically I would have, typically I'd have video, but your manager said that you're in like a bad area, so you just want to do audio. So it'll be video of me and audio of you, and I'll put a nice picture of you next to it so people know what you look like.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Please put something flattering.
Of course
so
I will.
This is not a print interview. This is actually they're going to hear
No, so they can't.
words.
But
Okay.
sometimes Blabbermouth will take a podcast and they'll take a piece of it, and then that will become a headline. And then I've seen a couple of yours on there. When I was doing my research
that
today.
Happens. It's fine. I mean, I don't give a fuck. It's fine. Whatever.
As
long as someone doesn't say something that I didn't say,
right,
then that would be a problem. But the reality is I'm saying it and you're recording it. So, I mean,
yeah,
it is what it is.
No, and I don't edit much, from like, I don't edit out the ums and the ahs and all that. So it's pretty much unedited so people can hear it and make their own decision. But I don't think you said anything super controversial or anything like that. So
no,
yeah,
no, I'm not a controversial guy.
No, you've just had such an amazing career. So yeah, we talked about the highlights. Was one of the highlights has to be the Rolling Stones, the opening for them in Japan. Was that like one of your biggest highlights of your career?
That was a real crazy moment. I remember at the end of it, the last show before I went on, the Stones will take a photograph with the opening act, professional photograph. Although the one that they gave me, it was a file and it's pixelated as shit. I printed it out. The quality's not so good. Anyway, but I remember Ron Wood came up to me and put his hand on my throat. Said, "My God, your voice, you remind me of Rod Stewart." He said, "You're a cross between Rod Stewart and Bernard Fowler." And Bernard is someone that I know. He's the background singer for many, many years. And he looked at Mick and goes, "Did you hear this kid sing?" And Mick said, "No, right, mate, didn't hear it, sorry." And but that was kind of a surreal moment. Actually having his hand touching my throat was sort of crazy. But it was cool. It was, beyond cool. But I'll tell you something. I didn't tell anyone that I was doing it until after the first show played out, because in my mind I thought there's a huge chance that I'm going to get over there and someone in the organization said, "Opening act, Richie who? What? No, we're not doing that." You know what I mean?
Or somebody goes on the AOL chat room and spoils it or something.
Yeah. Fuck, yeah, exactly.
No, so, that's smart.
Yeah. None of that shenanigans. But no, it was great, man. I mean, I'll tell you, it was the easiest gigs I ever did, because I didn't take any crew, because I knew a lot of the guys on the crew. They knew me, and they took care of us. I mean, the monitors were killer. I could hear everything. I mean, it was really great. It was really cool.
That's cool. Is there anyone else that's left? Is there anyone on your bucket list? Because I feel like Rolling Stones, that's got to be number one for a lot of people. Or is there somebody else that you haven't had a chance to work with?
I don't know. Maybe Bruce Springsteen or Bob Dylan.
Ooh, yeah. Songwriting with Bob Dylan. That would be to write a song with him and see that process. That would be cool.
Paul McCartney.
Ooh.
Paul McCartney.
Yeah, that would be. That would be. Are you a Led Zeppelin guy? Would it like Robert Plant, Jimmy Page?
Sure. I mean, yeah. I mean, we grew up on all that stuff. I mean, I guess the Who. I love the Who. I love their songs and the writing and the lyrics. And I actually played with Roger Daltrey too. I have a funny story, real quick. But many years ago, I participated in this thing called Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp. And what this is that people will pay a certain amount of money, and they get put into a group, a band, if you will, and then a well-known musician of a certain pedigree will coach them, and then write a song with them, teach them some cover songs. Ultimately, they perform, and then there's always a top A-list rock star that will come around, meet everybody, maybe play a song with them as well. And on this camp, it was Roger Daltrey from The Who. And I was one of the guitar players that was going to perform in his band, because he had agreed to do 5 or 6 songs as the grand finale. And this was taking place at B.B. King's in New York, which is a funny sounding room if you don't know what you're doing and have the right sound man. It's a very dry, and it's one of those stages that doesn't forgive anything. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so he was going to play, and the sound check starts, and immediately he starts, getting kind of aggressive about the fact that he can't hear his voice. And I had just played there 2 months earlier, so I'm like, yeah, I'm thinking to myself, I know exactly what's going on, and I know how to fix it, but, it's Roger Daltrey, who, I'm not going to say anything. So this starts getting, like, kind of out of control a little bit, where he's, like, threatening to not play with the band and just get up with an acoustic guitar and play a song. So I said, excuse me, Mr. Daltrey. I said, I know you don't know who I am, but I'm a singer. I just played this room a couple of months ago. I had the same problem you're having now, and I have a workaround, and it got me through my show. Do you want to try it? And he's like, it says, right, mate, no problem. Show me what you've got. So I basically do this workaround, whatever you want to call it. I'm not going to bother explaining what it was, but I got his vocal where it needed to be in the room, and the band was not stepping on it, and we had a great show. It was really cool.
That's awesome. That's I'm glad that story went a good way and he didn't get pissed off at you or something.
Yeah, he was pretty pissed off, but he wasn't pissed at me. But then once we got it fixed, then he's coming over and says, well, I play this one song I got, no one really knows it. Can I show it to you? And he starts, showing me this kind of, thing. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't not get this because, now he thinks I know what I'm doing. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to look like a fool. But it was some really strange timing thing that, like, I have no problem playing in odd meters, but this thing was like, I'm like, what is going on? It's like that Johnny Cash tune that's kind of tricky, that kind of moves in a weird way. I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but nonetheless, it turned out to be a great show.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds super fun. Yeah. You've worked with so many amazing people. Todd Rundgren was one of them too, I think. Like, how was he to work with?
No.
Did you never work with him?
No, never met him.
Huh. Why did I thought I saw like multiple things with your name and his. Maybe I must be confused.
I think there's a tribute record floating around that I might have played a few chords on.
Oh, okay.
There's probably a tribute record to Todd Rundgren.
Okay, maybe that's what it was. Yeah, you did a bunch of those tribute records. That was kind of a big phase I feel like in the 90s, the early 2000s, everyone was doing the tribute stuff.
It was. Yeah, it was a thing, and it was a way, for out-of-work musicians to get a couple bucks.
Yeah.
But, it was cool. There's all these different things that people come up with for us to do. But, now, luckily, I've worked myself into a pretty good spot over the last 10 years. I have a joke, but it's not a joke. And it's called, you've heard of the power of yes, but my thing is the power of no. And there is nothing more liberating and freeing than saying no thanks and not giving an explanation. Because most of the grief and misery I've experienced in my life is because I've agreed to do something that in my gut I know is the wrong thing for me to be doing. So it's all about the power of no.
Like, what are examples, like working with certain musicians or shows or?
Nah, I'm not going to go down that road. I'm just saying in general, like if someone asks you to do something, apply it to yourself. Like if someone asks you to do something and, you just don't want to do it, but you end up doing it and it turns into a fucking mess. Right. Like it could be anything, like letting a estranged relative, borrow your car, or whatever, Right. It's like, it's just, I think over the years, I've just kind of realized, well, money isn't everything, especially if you have a couple dollars laying around. And so, even beyond that, if you don't, sometimes your peace of mind is much better than the aggravation of doing something and compromising yourself to do something that in your heart you really don't want to do. No, that's it's the power of no. I love it. That's great advice. Back to your music here. We got to wrap this up. You have the Smith Kotzen is coming out. You're going to be doing solo shows, and then Winery Dogs album coming out next year and shows for that as well.
So lots of great stuff for you. People can, and like I said, the VIP, we talked about that, so people can get those. That's really awesome. Great stuff. I always end with a charity too. Is there a charity that you want to promote here at the end if people have a few extra bucks left over after they buy your album?
It'd be wonderful if they donated to the cause of ALS.
Okay.
Garris disease. That would be a really lovely thing.
Okay, perfect. I'll put that in the notes along with your website and the Smith Kotzen website. And I think, does Winery Dogs, they got a website too, right? I think that should be, I'll put that in there too.
We do.
Yeah, they can follow you on social media, follow Winery Dogs, follow all this stuff. You're making great music.
Follow me. If you want to follow me, I'm on Instagram, Richie_Kotzen. I got the blue check mark. There's a lot of, we all have it. We all have these guys that are, or who knows who they are. They're running around pretending to be us.
Right.
You know?
If they ask you for money, that's usually a tell. That.
Yeah. But I got the blue check mark, and so, you know, that's me.
Awesome. Well, hopefully I'll get a blue tick one of these days too. I'm working towards that. So thank you so much for doing this. Lots of great stories. I appreciate you being so open as well. So hopefully I can catch a show. I'd love to see you. I've never seen you live. It looks like an amazing experience from the tracks that I've heard off this new record that are live. It sounds amazing. So.
Right on. All right, man. Well, thank you, and talk to you another time.
Okay, thanks, Richie. See ya.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye.
Okay, thank you again to Richie Kotzen. Make sure to check out the new singles out now from Smith Kotzen, and the upcoming full album will be out soon as well. Richie is on tour with his solo band, so check his website for tour dates, and there will be a new Winery Dogs out in 2023. The best way to keep up with all this stuff, of course, is to follow Richie on social media and his other projects, Smith Kotzen, the Winery Dogs. That way you'll get the quickest updates on what he's doing. If you want to support my show, your likes, shares, and comments on YouTube and social media help me out immensely. I'm eternally grateful for those. I appreciate all your support. Have a great day and shoot for the moon.